This video is about the process we use, applying the concepts from the other videos to make changes systematically and reliably. To make real differences, we need to think of change at many levels. At the personal level, changing ourselves. At the interpersonal level, changing how we work with others to help them change. At the organizational level, changing groups, businesses, governments, and other organizations. At the societal level, making cultures, societies, economies, and all of humanity better. At the life level, making our life in general better. And at the process or meta level, making our approaches better for even healthier change and growth. We've mentioned before that learning is the only solution with the inherent sophistication to offer healthy change. We need a process with learning at its core that allows us to systematically and reliably apply all of the elements involved in learning. For example, we need to ensure the process creates the optimal environment, experience, and facilitation to enable healthy growth and create the magic we need to tackle the major challenges in front of us. There are many processes related to the many fields designed to create change, including OD, facilitation, marketing and sales, and project management. Let's see if we can create a process that pulls together the best of all of them. The process is naturally circular because learning is a never-ending process. We'll always be continuously improving. A challenging but critical concept in our process for change is co-creation. Real, healthy, and sustainable change happens only when everyone is involved, not when we inflict change on others. Real change must create mutual value for everyone involved, which only works when we include everyone's perspectives. That can be a daunting and seemingly impossible challenge, especially when there are many stakeholders. Our process addresses co-creation with the recognition that all change starts small and grows. So we need the right amount of structure for each phase of growth. We start with the initiate phase, which is where we get the change started with a smaller group. The involve phase is where we roll the change out to a larger group, and the increase phase is where we scale the change across the entire population. Because this phase is about co-creation, that is, involving people, the steps in each phase are substantially the same. We establish the learning environment, we center participants and build engagement, we cultivate understanding, we actuate learning systematically, we coordinate the process, we close and integrate, and then we follow up and evaluate and increase. Let's look at the process a little more closely. We start with the initiate phase, which is where we get the change started with a smaller group, usually with the people around us or with whatever friendly people will listen. Or it may be the group that's commissioned to get the change started. We sometimes consider this to be the planning phase, but that might be a dangerous label because it implies that we're hunkered down in a conference room planning how we'll inflict change on those who aren't currently involved. The reality is, the initiate phase is when the change is actually starting. The very process of us considering the change is starting to change us. Many times, it helps us to keep this group relatively small because it's easier to coordinate and contain the inevitable failures. A mistake, however, is when we make this group exclusive. For example, we may find ourselves only including people who agree with us because it's easy to get our energy going without disagreement. This can easily set the project off in the wrong direction. The goal is to involve people as early as feasible, so we move to the involve phase. We may traditionally refer to this phase as the rollout to the target audience, but again, this is dangerous, implying that we're inflicting change on that target audience. Remember that the purpose is for all of us to change, and we should be starting our change in the initiate phase. The involve phase usually calls for more structure than the initiate phase, which can be more agile because the group is smaller. The increase phase is when we start scaling the change out to the full population. Because of the number of people involved, this phase usually takes a much more sophisticated approach than other phases. There are far more variables to consider, and things are happening much faster with more moving pieces. A danger in the increase phase is that we assume that our change has proven itself in the earlier involve phase. But in the increase phase, we're now bringing in a whole new set of stakeholders, probably many times more than there were in earlier phases, all with their own needs and perspectives. The distinctions between the phases aren't as important as the overall concept, because in reality, we'll probably go around the cycle many times in the course of the change. What's most important is that we continually involve people as much as feasible and that we're all continuously learning together. Of course, the nature of each phase is different, and thus the approaches in each phase have different levels of sophistication, but we can still think of the general process steps as the same in each phase. For example, regardless of the number of people involved, we must always be tending to the learning environment and considering how to improve it to accommodate the new participants. We must be continually centering and engaging ourselves and the participants in the process. We must always be cultivating understanding and actuating our learnings. And we must be vigilant in coordinating the process. Just as we must be deliberate about how we create and coordinate moments and experiences, we must also take care in how we bring closure to those moments and help participants integrate their learnings. And we must take care in how we reflect on those moments to create even more magical experiences in the next cycle. The exact order of these steps is not always critical. Sometimes we might vary the order, such as when we must re-engage participants in the middle of the cycle, such as after a break. And we're typically doing several steps simultaneously or even continuously. The key is to ensure that we've handled all the steps adequately to ensure the process stays healthy. As we mentioned in earlier videos, the key in both OD and facilitation is meeting the participants where they are, facilitating a healthy process, and co-creating a healthier result or state of being. And there's always learning involved. Both OD and facilitation involve thoughtful consideration and systematic, graceful co-creation. And if we want real, healthy, sustainable change that benefits all of us, learning must be at the center. Hopefully now this vision for ourselves and our lives doesn't seem so far-fetched.